My roommate talks in his sleep. I found the room on a student housing board, a small place just off campus. Cheap, nothing fancy. Perfect for my budget. The guy I moved in with, Adam, seemed quiet and polite. A little awkward, maybe, but we both kept to ourselves, so it worked. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. We split chores, paid rent on time, nodded at each other in the kitchen. He was the ideal roommate. That changed the night I heard him talking in his sleep. It started softly. I was up late working on a paper, headphones in, and I thought I heard something. When I took them off, I heard it clearly. His voice low and strained through the paper-thin wall. Just one sentence. "Don't let him leave." I froze. I waited. Silence again. I laughed it off. People sleep talk. Maybe he had a weird dream, but it kept happening. Every night for the next week, I'd hear him. Always around 3 a.m. At first it was gibberish, but the longer I listened, the clearer it got. He's watching me from the other side. Don't open the door. He knows I'm not alone anymore. I started recording it. Not because I thought anything would come of it, but because it unsettled me so much I needed proof it wasn't in my head. On the third night of recordings, he said my name. Eli. Eli shouldn't be here. I nearly dropped my phone. The next day I confronted him. I tried to be casual, like, "Hey, you talk in your sleep a lot, man. Pretty intense stuff." He just looked at me, pale and nervous. He said, "I don't dream." That's all. From then on, I couldn't sleep. I'd lay there, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, waiting for 3 a.m. I didn't have to wait long. One night, the talking stopped and the scratching began. It sounded like fingernails along the inside of my closet door. I sat up in bed, not breathing. Then I heard his voice right outside my door. "Eli, don't move. He's in there with you." My door creaked open slowly. I didn't scream. I couldn't. There was nothing there, just Adam standing in the hallway, pale, shaking, eyes wide like a terrified child. "I told you not to move," he whispered. That night I slept in my car. I moved out the next morning. But here's the thing. 3 nights ago I started hearing it again, scratching, a voice in the walls. And this time, it's my own voice saying his name. "Adam, don't let him leave." The roommate who never slept. I moved into the apartment in early June. Rent was dirt cheap, which should have been my first red flag. But I was broke and desperate, and when I met my new roommate, Jamie, he seemed normal enough. Quiet, pale, kept to himself. A bit weird, sure, but I've had weirder. He only had one real rule. Don't go into my room. Fair enough. I figured he just valued his privacy, and I respected that. But from the start, things felt off. The apartment always felt cold, no matter how hot it got outside. At night, I'd hear noises, scratching, shifting, low humming, coming from Jamie's room. Sometimes I'd wake up and swear I heard whispering behind my door. Always just out of focus, always just a little too quiet to catch. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I got up to grab water. As I passed Jamie's door, I saw light pouring from underneath it. But what stopped me cold was the shadow on the floor. It was moving, twitching, like it didn't belong to a person at all, like it was disconnected from a body, flailing around in slow, unnatural pulses. I backed away, fast, and almost dropped my glass. The next morning, Jamie acted totally normal. "Sleep well?" he asked, sipping his black coffee like nothing happened. His eyes looked darker than usual, hollow almost. The next few nights I started locking my door. The noises kept coming. At one point I swore I heard something scratch in the outside of my door, like it was testing it. Then came the dreams, horrible ones. I'd see Jamie, but not Jamie. His limbs would be too long, his jaw would unhinge, and he'd be standing at the foot of my bed just watching me, whispering my name backwards over and over. Ikaz, Ikaz. One night I woke up to the sound of my door clicking open. I know I locked it. I know I did. But it was open. Just a crack. I didn't move. I just stared at the gap. And then I saw an eye, wide, glassy, staring at me from the darkness. Not blinking, just watching. I must have passed out because the next thing I remember is waking up in daylight, drenched in sweat. Door wide open. Jamie was in the kitchen. He smiled at me like nothing had happened. I wanted to confront him, ask him what the hell was going on. But I couldn't. My throat went dry. Something deep inside me told me not to. The next day I came home early from work. Jamie wasn't there. I don't know what possessed me, but I walked straight to his room and opened the door. It was freezing inside. The walls were covered in mirrors, everyone cracked down the middle. In the center of the room there was a circle drawn on the floor in what looked like dried blood. Symbols I didn't recognize, candles melted into strange, twisted shapes. A single photo pinned to the wall. It was of me, sleeping. I slammed the door and ran. I packed a bag and left that night. I never went back, never even collected the rest of my things, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I see him again, standing at the foot of my bed, watching, whispering my name, Ikaz. He was never on the lease. When I first moved to the city, I was lucky to find a cheap room in a 3-bedroom apartment. The guy who showed me the place was named Tom. Tall, laid back, maybe a little awkward, but nice enough. He said the 3rd room was occupied by another tenant, Jeremy, who kept to himself. I never saw Jeremy when I moved in, never heard him talk. But his door was always closed, and sometimes I'd hear shuffling in his room late at night. I figured he just worked nights or was super private. After a few weeks, I started noticing weird things, like how food kept going missing, but Tom swore it wasn't him, or how I'd wake up to the bathroom light on, water dripping, even though both of us were in our beds. I asked Tom once, jokingly, "Is Jeremy a vampire or something?" He just laughed nervously and said, "He's different." Then things got worse. One night I was in the kitchen around midnight getting a glass of water when I saw something crawl, yes, crawl, out of Jeremy's room. It was fast, low to the ground, and gone before I could even process what I saw. I stood frozen, my heart slamming in my chest. Tom came out a minute later, pale as a ghost. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, then back at Jeremy's door. "Just don't open it," he said. "Ever." I didn't sleep that night. The next day I asked him straight up what was going on. He looked exhausted, scared even. He told me that Jeremy had been the first tenant here. He was already in the apartment when Tom moved in. But here's the thing. He doesn't pay rent. He's not on the lease. No one remembers letting him in. He was just here one day, Tom said, and now he never leaves. I thought he was messing with me, until I checked with the landlord. There were only 2 names on the lease, mine and Tom's. No Jeremy. That night, I heard whispering through the walls, a soft, scratchy voice that didn't sound human. Over and over it whispered, "I was here first. I was here first. I was here first." I barricaded my door. 2 nights later, Tom disappeared. I woke up and his room was empty. Bed made, closet bare, like he was never there. Only Jeremy's door remained shut. Now it's just me here, alone. Except I hear breathing behind his door. Every night. Sometimes I see shadows moving under it. Sometimes I feel someone watching me sleep. I want to leave. I swear I do. But the door won't open anymore. Not Jeremy's. Mine. The roommate who moved in. After he died, when I found the listing online, I thought it was too good to be true. Big apartment, cheap rent, and located just 2 train stops from work. The only catch? The guy already living there wanted someone to move in immediately. His name was Alex. When I met him, he seemed a little off. Friendly, but in that distant, hollow-eyed way. His voice was flat, like someone doing their best impression of being normal. Still, I needed a place, and he didn't ask many questions. We shook hands, and I moved in the next day. That first night, he just stayed in his room. I figured he was introverted. No big deal. But then weird stuff started happening. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to hear footsteps pacing the hallway, even though his door was closed, and I could see the shadows of 2 feet under it, standing still, facing my room. Once, I heard him in the kitchen around 3 a.m., mumbling in a low voice. I cracked my door open quietly and peeked down the hall. The lights were off. The kitchen was empty. When I brought it up the next morning, he just smiled and said, "Oh yeah, I sleepwalk sometimes." I believed him. Until the 4th night. That night I came home and found the front door unlocked. Alex's door was wide open, lights off inside. I knocked. No response. I peeked in. His room was completely empty. No bed, no clothes, no sign of anyone ever living there. I stood in the doorway, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. A death certificate taped to the inside of the closet door. Name, Alexander Grant. Date of death, March 3rd, 2 weeks before I moved in. I ran. I didn't pack. I didn't look back. I just ran out of that apartment and didn't stop until I was outside and gasping for air. Later that night, I got a text from Alex's number. It said, "You said you'd stay." I don't like being alone. I blocked the number. I moved across the city. I never told anyone the full story, until now. But sometimes, late at night, I get a notification on my phone. Missed FaceTime call, Alex. I've changed my number, reset everything. But somehow, he always finds it again. And every time I get that call, it's at exactly 3:03 a.m. My roommate wasn't real. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment last fall. It was cheap, way too cheap for the area, but I took it without thinking twice. The ad mentioned a roommate, a guy named Eli. I figured we'd meet, sign some papers, maybe share a beer or 2. But when I arrived, he wasn't there. The landlord handed me the key and said Eli kept to himself. The first few nights were normal, just quiet. I'd hear movement in his room, drawers opening, footsteps, even faint humming. I never caught him coming or going, but I figured we just had different schedules. Then one night I woke up to the sound of whispering. I assumed Eli was on the phone, but it was past 3 a.m. I pressed my ear to the wall and could barely make out the words, "Don't let him see you. He'll ruin everything." I laughed it off as a dream, but it happened again and again. And then things started changing. My things. My toothbrush was soaked one morning, my phone charger went missing and showed up in the freezer. Once I found muddy footprints leading out of the bathroom, barefoot, long like someone had been dragging their toes. I tried knocking on Eli's door. No answer. I even left a note. The next morning, the note was stuck to my ceiling with a steak knife. I told the landlord I wanted to speak to Eli. He looked at me like I was insane. "There's no Eli," he said. "That room's been locked for over a year. Last tenant tried to sublet it, but let's just say it didn't end well." I broke into the room the next night. The air was stale, dust thick enough to write my name in. The bed was untouched, no clothes, no signs of life. Just a mirror nailed to the opposite wall with deep gouges in the glass, like someone had clawed at it from the inside. I turned to leave and saw a figure in the mirror. Not behind me, in the mirror. He looked like me, but the eyes were wrong. He mouthed the word, "Stay." I slammed the door and didn't sleep for days. I left the apartment a week later. Never looked back. But sometimes, when I glance at my bathroom mirror in the middle of the night, I see him standing behind me, smiling.